This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling, an exploration into how master storytellers and artists develop and build brilliant stories and works of art that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators of all kinds find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. Well, my guest today, the multi-talented Carla Bianco, first performed when she was just 4 years old at a party where guests who, upon hearing her sing, would fill a Styrofoam cup with money. Music has been her passion ever since. While attending New York University, Carla landed a music publishing deal with heavyweight producer Jellybean Benitez and had her first song, Not This Time, released on Atlantic Records. While mastering her craft, she had the good fortune to collaborate on songwriting with many top music writers and producers like Narada Michael Walden, Judd Friedman, and Reggie Lucas. She's well known for composing the #1 Billboard song, The Lover That You Are, which won her an ASCAP award. Her follow-up single, Music Takes Ya, also recorded by Pulse, went to the top 10 on Billboard. Later, Carla would release her first record, All This Time, on her own label, Ivory Note Records. As an actor, Carla is perhaps best known for starring as Maureen in both the Los Angeles and Broadway productions of Rent. She's also worked off-Broadway in cutting-edge shows like Spring Awakening, where she originated the role of Wendla. Carla's self-composed and semi-autobiographical musical Kaleidoscope was chosen for the prestigious ASCAP Disney Musical Theater Workshop in Los Angeles, directed by legendary composer Stephen Schwartz. On screen, Carla has acted in George Romero's TV show Dead Time Stories, Tony Scott's film Unstoppable starring Denzel Washington and Chris Pine, and she appeared opposite Matt Damon in the feature Promised Land. She's also a nationwide spokesperson appearing in countless commercials. Carla helped to found the Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center and charter school just outside of our mutual hometown of Pittsburgh. Carla teaches voice right here at Point Park University. She also runs the Carla Bianco Voice Studio, offering private lessons and classes in voice, acting, and songwriting. For more, won't you please check out www.carlabiancovoicestudio.com. For the record, I recently had the honor and privilege to work with Carla toward mounting a reading of Kaleidoscope here in Pittsburgh. For that reason and so many more, it is a great joy for me to welcome my good friend Carla Bianco on StoryBeat today. Carla, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. It's so great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. So let's just start off and get a little bit more about your history. Obviously, as we said, you've been performing since you were a little girl, but at what age were you really inspired to write music? At that same time, at 4?
I would say about 10.
10?
Yes, I would start writing lyrics. I hadn't played the piano yet, so I just sort of would get lyric ideas and be in my basement just making up melodies and songs just in the air, just a cappella.
So for you, it was the words first.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still that way?
It depends. If there's something that I really want to say, or especially with theater songs, I will tend to do the lyrics first. But sometimes I like to just press record and just go for 30 minutes and just be on the piano and see what comes out.
So you riff and things just come?
Yes.
Has it always been that way for you?
Yes.
So in other words, you've never had to say to yourself, oh, I'm going to force something out. It just comes to you.
It just comes. I mean, sometimes if I have to do a rewrite, there's a little bit of that, where you have to think it through, and that's not my favorite. It tends that whenever something just sort of streamlines in about 10 minutes in, maybe 20 minutes in, and it goes from beginning to end, that I've usually got something good.
I hope you recognize that's quite a gift. That not everybody has that ability.
Well, I never really thought about it.
You never thought of it as a gift?
I guess not. I guess I just thought that's what I do.
Do you feel that music is your calling?
Yes.
It is your calling. It's something that you are here on earth to do.
Yes, in some form or another, it changes in how or the outlets that I'm doing it in. But yeah, in some form or another.
So what then? Do you find inspiration in things or life or living, or what inspires you to suddenly write something, or does it just come out of nowhere?
It can come out of nowhere. That's whenever I'm doing the riffing thing, where I just hit play, I
Right.
record. A song will definitely come out every day, even twice a day. And no matter when I do that, a song will come out. But whenever the lyrics come first, there's usually something that has inspired me, something that I saw or something that someone said to me, or just even time journaling and having some sort of light go off or some inspiring thought about someone's life, my life, the world at large, and then I will start writing words or lyrics about it, and then that's whenever the lyrics comes first, because there's some inspiration.
I certainly know from spending some time around you that a lot of your work comes from your own personal life, that you're inspired by things that happen to you or around you or for you or whatever that would be. So do you actively journal your life? Do you keep a record of it somehow?
I do. I have notebooks and notebooks of journals from, I don't know, maybe since I was a teenager. Just boxes of journals, and I always wonder who's going to find those one day.
And what they may find.
Yes, right.
Do you go back to them every once in a while and look for source stuff?
Sometimes. It's rare. I usually like to just live in the moment or, the recent future. But it's interesting to look back when I do, and there are some reoccurring themes of just different obstacles and you know how you kind of circle around and
Sure.
you're always trying to get through certain things in your life. I'll see them reoccurring and I'm like, oh, there we go again.
But that's not a conscious effort on your part. That just happens.
Just happens.
And there's a theme in this too. Obviously, things are happening for you or through you. Do you ever feel like you're a conduit from the universe, that it's just coming through you?
Definitely.
I think a lot of creatives feel that way, that they are not the actual source of what's coming out. They're a conduit for it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's why writing is always my number one thing, because I just love that intimacy with the universe or God or some. It's like almost there's like a spiritual act to it whenever you write, and it's just. I don't know. It seems that's number one go-to for me.
I don't know why for me, although I certainly can think of it other ways too, but music for me seems to have the most spiritual component to it. It feels otherworldly. It's a language of its own, but it's not a language that we actually speak to one another on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so it has that coming from somewhere else place to me.
Yeah, it's like it has like a mystery to it. You know, that it just emotionally evokes things and memories out of different people for different reasons. And one song can mean something totally different to 10 different people. And that I think that's what's so interesting about it, like you say.
Well, words obviously can create emotion, but I think there's nothing that is purely emotional as either seeing an image that's purely emotional or hearing something like music that is purely emotional. There's no verbal component to it. It's just is, and it either hits you on a gut level or it doesn't. You know. So was there some point? Was it right away, or is there some point that you got to in your life where you thought to yourself, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this"? How long did it take after you started to write that you went, "Yeah, you know what? I'm good at this"? Was it right away?
I think it was kind of right away. Well, once I got the piano, I was 12.
So you were a natural at doing this.
I would say.
Yeah.
It really came easy. It was a comfort for me, too. You know, I would come home from school, do my homework, and just get lost, where you lose track of time.
Sure.
Hours and hours at my piano in the basement, I'd practice what I had to practice for my classical training because I was learning that. But then I would just go off on songs for and play them over and over and over again. I must have drove my parents crazy.
I'm sure you must have. You were what I call getting in the zone. You get in a zone and you forget where time doesn't exist. It just 4 hours goes by and you go, what happened to those 4 hours?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there nothing more blissful than that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think
other
so.
than some Italian food.
Italian food. Italian food is more blissful than
Well,
the
it's
zone.
up there. It's up there. I don't know about better.
Do you get in the zone when you cook?
Mm-hmm.
So is cooking art for you?
Definitely.
So it's another form of art. It's another form of expressing yourself.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people feel that way about cooking, and some people think it's just something I need to survive. And for you, I've had the fortune to have some of your food, and I can say it is an art form.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. It depends on the day of the week. I mean, when you're in the grind and you just need to eat, it's not that fun. But sometimes on the weekend when you're just relaxing and it's more creative.
Does food give you musical inspiration?
That's interesting. I know, not really.
Not really. So you
No.
don't. For instance, Agatha Christie, the great
Yes.
mystery novelist, famously got a lot of her ideas when she washed dishes. That's how she would do her thinking, was washing dishes. And so I was wondering if perhaps, cooking was something that created moments for you that you then turned into music.
I don't think so. That happens for me when I'm driving or walking.
You get inspiration from driving or walking. Do you work problems out by taking a walk?
Yes.
I do the same.
Yes.
For me, when I don't know how to get from A to B, I will go take a walk and think it through. And somehow the rhythm of walking
Yes.
creates the ability to, jog the brain somehow.
Totally. And sometimes I think, oh, I'm done. I'm going to put that song away and I'm just going to go for a walk now. And then all of a sudden I get better ideas for whatever I was working on, and I'm not prepared because I don't have a recorder with me or whatever. And I thought I was done, but it still opens up more to go deeper.
So early on, did you do anything in particular to develop what you recognized as your talent? Did you do anything special, like go to classes or take lessons from somebody or something like that?
The only thing I took was studying piano, but it was classically. And I would do my own analyzing. So I would listen to all my favorite songs, favorite records, albums for hours and hours, and ask myself, like, why do I love that song? Like, why does it work? And I'd break it down, verse-wise, lyric-wise. Why is that lyric grabbing me emotionally? And I would listen to the songs over and over and kind of do my own breakdown of why the songs worked, and then try to mimic that in my songwriting. As young as 12, 13, 14 years old, I was doing that just instinctually.
That's amazing. I maybe you don't recognize it, but to me, and I think to most people who are not, obviously I have a musical background, but I don't play instruments and I don't read music. I do it by however I feel and by ear. You obviously have a gift, I think, that you're able to play piano as gracefully as you do, as well as you do, and that you're able to compose as well as you do. Did you immediately understand musical notation on paper, or did you have to go for training for that?
I actually, you learn some basics in school in music class.
Sure.
Just like the Every Good Boy Does Fine and FACE, just like the notes, line notes, space notes. And then from there, I grabbed my brother's accordion book because my brother played the accordion, and I had
Doesn't
the piano.
Everybody?
And I grabbed that and just started teaching myself based off of that little bit of knowledge that I had from school. So I would work with the right hand, and then I learned from that book how to play the left hand and kind of put it together, some basics, and learned the book. And then asked my dad, and then got piano lessons, and then went from there.
Is there music in your family's history?
Yes, my dad played the mandolin, and my mother sang in the choir in church. So they both have really nice voices. They would always sing around the house. And my oldest brother, played guitar. He was in a rock band growing up. And my other brother, the accordion. And my sister sings. She never pursued it or developed it, but she has a nice voice as well.
So in other words, there's some genetic component to this.
I would say, yeah.
It's built in. It's baked in, as they say. But yet you have to take it and then do something with it.
Right.
You can't just sit there and say, "Hey, I've got musical genes." You've actually got to go do something.
Right.
Which clearly you've done. Can you think back and say what your earliest inspirations were? Do you know what were there influences or particular musicians or songs or something like that inspired you early on?
Well, in terms of writing, I would say boys.
Boys.
Yeah.
Boys inspired you.
Yeah. I remember being 10 and before I got the piano, writing lyrics about having a crush on a boy, just like little love songs. And then also, I would write these inspiring songs as well. They were sort of, I think, to inspire me, to overcome what obstacles, or you can do it. These kind of coaching type lyric songs, like you can make it. Positive songs. Yeah, I had a few like that, and then these love songs were what were
so
the inspiration.
So it was rah rah boys.
Yes, rah rah boys. Yes, inspiration to then fall in love. I don't know.
You were actually being a cheerleader very early on,
mm-hmm.
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say music was your first creative love?
Yeah.
Music was it.
Definitely.
And later on, performance.
Right.
But you were actually performing at 4, but you didn't realize what that turned into.
No, that was just a thing that
you did.
You did, yeah, like riding a bike. Hey, I'll sing a song. Oh, I get brownies. My neighbor would give me brownies when I'd sing.
Your neighbor would give you brownies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, music for you was Pavlovian. You knew if there were brownies around, something was going to happen.
Yes, I was being trained. So I guess food is connected in there somewhere.
It has to be connected in there somewhere. So I want to go and I want to explore for just a moment. This may be challenging for you since I think you don't think too hard about what you're doing. You do it. You're a natural at it. Can you explain in any way? Is it possible for you to explain what happens when you do get an idea and you start to write? Do you go through a certain routine or process in order to develop that song as you're just playing? Is there some kind of process you go through?
If I'm writing the music first, where I'm pressing record and improvising, there's well, I kind of feel around until something hits me in terms of a melody and some chords. And then once something is striking me like it's hitting an emotional core, I'll repeat that and then move in and around it. Like I may explore around that phrase and maybe shift it and change it. But once I find like a core couple of phrases and melody, I kind of stick with it. Like I just move around it because it's making a connection. Like I can tell that it's an outpouring of some truth that's coming out.
Is it a very repetitive process? Are you playing the same chords and notes over and over again until you get somewhere?
Yeah. Once I find it. In the beginning, I may move from this key to that key, and it only happens maybe max 10 minutes. It's almost like working out. Like when you're on the treadmill, the first 10 minutes are really hard, and then you kind of start cruising a little bit. Well, once I hit 10 minutes into the improv, I'll hit something that some truth will come out, and that's whenever I keep repeating whatever that key is or those chords that I'm playing.
Right.
I'll repeat those, but then explore in and around it. Like I don't get rigid with it. There's truth there. I stick with it, but I'm sort of, that's the part of the pool that I've dove in. Maybe I dove in at 12 feet, but then I swim around in that pool, in and around those chords and those words, and I let whatever I want to say come out, and I don't think about the words at all. And when I listen back after I do that for 30 minutes, I will hear something that is trying to be said. There'll either be a couple of phrases that are already done, like lyrically, like that is what the song is about. But sometimes I have to sort of decipher, oh, what am I saying there? One time I did that with a song, and all of the lyrics were already written.
Wow.
I had to just make out what I was saying. It was like I was decoding it because I'd be just singing these syllables, and then I realized that syllable is really the word really the word ocean. I'd be like, ocean. I'm like, that's ocean.
Wow.
It's almost like a decoding. And one time I did that with an entire song. It just, boom, came out. And it
Was it a surprise when it happened? Were you surprised by it?
Yeah, I was surprised that every lyric was there. I mean, usually there's some, and then I have to think about the rest.
Sure.
But every lyric, it was the Can't Call You Love Anymore.
Really?
It came out like that.
That's fascinating. I mean, obviously I spent some time working with a fairly successful composer, being Frank Wildhorn, and he would work things out over, he was a pretty fast writer too, but he usually worked music in. In other words, the music would come and then the lyrics would get put to it. And so I do know that he occasionally, a phrase, a hook would come to him lyrically, and he would work the music around the hook. But most of the time it was music first. In your case, it's kind of words first, which is, I think, more common, and then you get it simultaneously.
Right. And then if I start with just a notepad and lyrics, I will write just a bunch of stuff. Like, there may be some key words that I know that's what the song's about. Like, I know that is what needs to be said. But then I'll write a lot of things, like a lot. And then whenever sometimes when I'm writing those words, I hear the melody at the same time, and sometimes the entire orchestration.
Wow.
And when that happens, then I start to simplify the lyric, because then the melody starts to tell me what to hone in on with the lyric, because I'll write more than I need.
Because the music actually is expressing what some of the words were expressing, and you don't need the words so much.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Or am I wrong?
Right. Yes. And there's I start to key into the core emotion and the melody of the song, and start to chip away at some of those lyrics that I don't need so many of them. I like it to cut through, not too much.
Well, just like in all good writing, less is frequently more.
Right.
That's true for all kinds of writing. It's what we teach and so on. Otherwise it becomes fatty in some way, and you don't need things. You only need what you need, and that's it.
Right.
That's going all the way back to Aristotle. He was teaching that kind of thing way back when, but it applies here as well. You just didn't know it.
Oh, see that?
Imagine you've come here and you've learned something. When you're working, do you have a particular audience in mind? Or is it just you?
No, I don't think about the audience in mind. I don't. I guess maybe later, maybe way later after it's written.
Sure,
yeah.
I think that's wise. If you, for instance, when you write a show, you want to start thinking about who's this for. Otherwise it could be fairly all over the map. That doesn't mean you want to make it for that audience, but you're thinking about that audience.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's helpful. Do you, when you do realize that you have something that you want to produce that's going out into the world, is there anything you do in particular? Do you polish it in a certain way? Do you think of, okay, I'm going to present this to Jellybean Benitez or whoever I'm going to present it to. I'm going to present it to Stephen Schwartz or whoever. Do you then prepare it in a different way than just working in your house? Do you do something special to it?
You mean in terms of the structure of it, or the writing of it?
Either that, or how it gets, for lack of a better word, produced, whether you produce it in synths, or do you try to pull an orchestra in, or a band, or do you think about presentation of the work itself before you present it to someone?
Oh, well, yeah. As far as the structure and the song, it doesn't matter who I'm presenting it to. I just stay true to what the song is, in terms of the emotion and it being the best song that it can be. I really believe a great song is going to communicate to anybody. And then from there, as far as the production of it, even if it's just piano vocal, which a piano vocal can communicate a song. If it's a really good song, that's really all you need. But I do it the best that it can be. I mean, in terms of a good vocal and it's a good presentation.
So you said sometimes you actually hear the full orchestration as you're writing. You
Yes.
can hear it in your head.
Mm-hmm.
How frequent is that? Is that regularly, or is that more infrequent?
That's pretty frequent.
Pretty frequent.
Yeah.
So each song has its own particular world that it's living in, and you're hearing the different musical instruments or whatever effects you're putting on it. You're actually hearing that as you're writing, and each song has its own, I guess, world is the way I'd put it.
Absolutely.
And do you then do you ever change that? Or is that always that way for you? Once you've got it, you've got it.
Change the instrumentation,
Yes.
you mean? Sometimes that initial moment that it comes out, that you hear it a certain way and then you put it down, but then as time goes on, or you find how it's going to be used, sometimes I get different ideas for the instrumentation, and I might do a different version of it.
So when you were working with some like Jellybean or someone, did he come in and put his stamp all over it, or did you get to put your stamp on it too?
Whenever I would co-write with people that were producers or arrangers, they definitely put their stamp on it. And I would do like the melody lyric. Those were those collaborations, which I really love that because each song would be different because, you're collaborating. See, they are putting their stamp on it, whether they're, have a hip hop vibe or more R&B or more pop or more rock or you just come from these different places.
Drum hits, different ways that you might bring strings in, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you orchestrate most of your own stuff too? Are you an orchestrator?
I do.
So you arrange and orchestrate as well, and then you perform as well.
Right.
So you're more than a one-person band, clearly, but you, because I think a lot of composers don't orchestrate and don't arrange. They hand it off to somebody else. Have you ever had that happen to you where somebody else took your stuff and arranged it and orchestrated
Yes.
And was it successful for you?
Yes. Yeah, it was
so
actually.
You don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it. Actually, I know this sounds a little crazy, but whenever I get all those orchestrations in my head when I'm writing a song, it's almost a little bit annoying because I wish I could just lay the melody down with the chords and just move on to the next song. But then you've got all this stuff going on in your head and you have to get it down. You've got to put the drum beat down.
Or it makes you crazy.
Right. But it takes a long time to do all that because then you have to go into the studio and, call up all the parts and record them and get everything that's in your head and get it down. So it takes longer to put the song down. And sometimes I'll hear those things in my head and I'll just record them with just my voice so I remember the parts because I just want to lay a piano vocal down. I want to move on to the next song or because I might be on a roll. That happens a lot too where I'll have, for some reason, months where maybe I'm not doing as much writing and then all of a sudden a 2-week period and 1 to 2 songs will come out a day. So you want to roll with it. You want to go with it. So that's the thing with the arranging. It takes longer to get all that stuff out, but then it's cool when you do.
Well, of course it takes longer because it's a lot of stuff.
Right.
It's a quantity thing as well as a quality thing.
Right.
The melody is hard enough to get to, but that's a single thing. Then all the other the stuff that goes around it is much more challenging to plus out time-wise.
Right.
Right. Do you find that? Well, let me ask: have you ever had someone else do an arrangement or an orchestration, and you went, "Ick, that's not right. That's not what I heard."
Yes.
And how did you deal with that?
Just worked with him on it. Like, I would go into the studio and then sing the parts. Say, well, that's not how I hear the drums, and work with them on it until we find it.
And do they tend to be pretty cooperative in a case like that, or is it? Have you ever gotten into a real tussle with somebody because their vision is one way and yours is a totally different one?
I haven't. If it's one of the songs that I've written, like if I've written it all on my own, they're usually cool about it. They're like, that's your song, But if it's a co-write, that's different. You really have to be a little bit more flexible because
collaborate.
Yeah, they hear their part the way that they hear their part in terms of the instrumentation. So, it's a delicate dance. So it's a little bit different.
It's as is any partnership of any kind, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a business partnership. All those require a dance. There's a level of cooperation that goes on that may not be suitable to everyone.
Right. Right.
And I think that is the hallmark of people who are really, good at what they do and mature, that they can allow others to sort of put their own 2 cents in.
And not to mention, sometimes you think you know what it needs to be, and then you find out later, well, actually, that idea that the way that they did it actually works better.
Sure.
It opens your eyes
Sure.
to a new way.
Sure. Well, so I think that's interesting for you that you get these things that come to you, and you sometimes think they're locked in. But in fact, you have the willingness to allow others to put some kind of a mark on it, or that you're willing to change things because somebody else influenced it or something else influenced it, one of those two.
Right, and I think, too, that whenever a song wants to be a certain way, and maybe you go down a different path with it for these reasons that we're talking about, if it really needs to be that way that you thought, it'll keep nagging at you and kind of scratching at your brain. I don't know. I think like the songs, like you're saying how in the beginning about how they kind of come to you and you almost feel like you didn't write them.
Right.
I think the songs also have a form that they want to be, an arrangement they want to be, to really work at their best. And they will, if you listen, they will tell you, this is what I need to be.
Right.
You know?
Right. So you would say you're pretty good at listening to what's going on in your thinking.
Yeah, pretty good.
You've gotten really good at it. In fact, you were good at it from early on.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you always work to be even better at it, you know, and then there's times in your life where you're better at it than others.
Well, if it were nonstop 24 hours a day, you'd be completely psychotic, I think, after a while.
Right.
No, I mean, yeah, obviously, I think it's got to come and go. Otherwise, you don't recognize what's working and not.
Right.
It's just all the same. It just becomes one drone.
Exactly.
Right? So when you're listening to other people's music, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Oh, wow. I like so many different kinds of music. And I'd say anywhere from funk, R&B, dance. Like, I love to dance to a groove.
Club music.
Well, club, yeah, not necessarily a house beat club, but I like just more funk, you know, like more, like I grew up on Earth, Wind and Fire.
Sure.
and Marvin Gaye, the Commodores, the Gap Band, Shaka Khan. I love that music.
When you say Shaka Khan, you have to say Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan. You have to say it that way.
Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan.
That's it.
Okay,
Exactly.
all right, got it. Remember that.
Are you able to listen to other people's music when you're in a composing mode? Or
Not really.
You have to shut it out?
I do.
Otherwise, it has some kind of weird power or influence over you.
Well, I go into the analyzing mode.
Into the analyzing mode, and you want to be into the freeform mode and not thinking about it.
Right.
I think that's a very interesting and compelling thing to say. Is that when you're in an analytical mode, it's not so easy for you to be an artist, but you need the analytical mode to understand the art, and then you need to dismiss it or divorce it in order to actually create.
Yes, there's a time to turn it on and a time to turn it off.
And so you shut out all kinds of other music. So when you're driving in the car, when you're in the middle of, you're in a streak and you're composing a bunch, right? And you get in the car, what do you listen to? Music, or do you listen to talk radio? What do you do? How does it work?
I don't listen to anything in the car. I actually just let my mind be open so that whatever wants to come into my brain from whatever I've been working on will come into my brain. And remember, I was saying that's when those ideas come out that you're like, oh, that's how I fix that. So in order to allow that to happen.
So you don't listen to anything in the car?
Not whenever I'm writing.
Writing.
Whenever I'm in like what I call like resource mode, where you're sort of like filling the well.
Sure.
I'll pop in all kinds of things. I mean, I love like Tori Amos and Bjork and Sarah McLachlan. And
do you listen to jazz and classical and that kind of stuff too?
When I'm cooking.
Cooking.
Yeah, when I'm cooking, I like to listen to music that doesn't have a vocal on it.
This explains the Italian food and your background, the fact that you are historically Italian, right?
Why?
I'm saying that you're listening to classical music while you're cooking explains it a lot.
Ah, yes. And the jazz. I like the jazz,
and jazz.
too. Yeah. Or a little bit of trip hop.
Trip hop?
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. What is trip hop?
Well, I like lounge music, too. You know, like it reminds me when I was living in New York when you'd hang out in the lounges and where you're just kind of chilling.
Is that an actual genre, trip hop?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's kind of has a hip-hop vibe, but it's more loungy, more laid back.
What artist is trip hop that would you say, hey, that's a trip hop composer or music,
I
or
couldn't
singer?
even tell you. I couldn't even tell you because I don't really follow the artists. It's more of a genre. It's not like I get a record that is a trip-hop artist per se.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I follow artists that are more with their lyrics and with their musicality. Trip hop is more something that it's more like background music.
Background. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
like an artist like Tori Amos or, Prince. You're like actively listening.
Sure, of course you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. But trip hop is more like wallpaper.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's like chillin' music.
It's chillin' music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to check out trip hop because that's one I didn't know before
Yeah.
today. I've learned something new. I've learned many things new up till now. You have been traditionally producing your own stuff of late. You're not going out to the music companies. You're not looking for music deals right now, correct?
Right.
And so, when you were working with producers, was there anything that you did with producers that you would now never do again? That you would tell someone, if you're going to get a gig with a producer, make sure you don't do this, or make sure you do this.
I can honestly say that for my path of kind of just being driven by knowing musically like what I want to do, I don't regret any of those decisions. And what I mean by that is that with early on with certain producers like Jellybean and other producers, they want to sign on an artist and kind of take the reins.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do that. I don't know. I just that was an instinctual thing where I signed deals, like publishing deals and management deals, but I didn't sign a production deal per se. I would work with them individually on songs or on a record, but not where a production deal, they maybe have you for many records and they have the say on artistically and creatively, like what is going on with the record, and there's just an ownership there. I chose not to do that even as young as 20 because, well, it just freaked me out. I didn't want somebody having that control over the art whenever I knew why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it to, for the fame or to hit it big and be some, I don't know.
I suspect that was part and parcel of you having so much command of what it was in your head and then translating it into a piano and to singing it, and that you had command of it and you didn't want anyone else to take that command from you.
Right, and for me it was just about creating the art. Creating the art and reaching people with it.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't get but I didn't buy into any of those things.
Into the things of, when you say those things, you're talking about into the politics and the game of being the artist who subverts themselves to the producer and so on. Right.
For whatever monetary gain or
fame.
Yes,
fortune,
these kind of. I avoided selling my soul. Let's say that.
That's.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've done a really good job of hanging on to your soul that way?
Absolutely, 100%.
In the time that I've gotten to know you, I would say that that's accurate.
Thanks, Steve.
I would say you are what I would call a whole human. You're of a piece.
Okay. Tell my husband that. No, I'm kidding.
I'll be happy to. I'll send him a letter. All right. So now you've also written shows, not just pieces of music. You've also written shows, which then requires a slightly different form of thinking because you're now thinking on a bigger scale than a 3 or 4 minute or 5 minute song. Do you think differently when you're constructing a show?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Well, just the emotional through line of the character, the emotional life of the character, and how those songs are threading their journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I love that about theatrical music, that within a song you can go from one part where you are emotionally and travel through a song, where in pop songs you don't do that as much. It's more like a tone or a emotional tone or feeling just for the song.
Mm-hmm.
But with theater, it's that kind of heightened emotion, larger than life feeling throughout, and that really is exciting to me.
And there's more of a character following the story. I mean, obviously you can write a song where there's a character in a story.
Yes.
But that tends to be less so than when you have a show where you must have a character that follows a story.
Right.
I suppose you don't have to, but generally speaking, you do. And so where do you start when you're starting to write a show? Obviously, Kaleidoscope, which we spent some time together on, is based largely on your own personal experiences. So you were pulling from your own repertoire, so to speak, of what you'd been through in life. Have you written stuff that was completely dispossessed from you? Total fiction?
I have song-wise, but I don't think I have show-wise.
So it's mostly been personal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that is your source. That's where you're sourcing from, is from you.
Right now. But I think that's going to change.
You're looking to do things that aren't just you. You're looking to things that are more either based on some other person's story or on a fiction of some kind.
Right. I think that's going to be just a natural evolution. I had to, I guess, get this out. I didn't know I did, but
Kaleidoscope?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, and you're still working on getting it out.
Yeah.
And I believe you're a far cry from being done with the world of Kaleidoscope.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to take it much further.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think for those of you who have never heard the music, you can go online and search various songs. And at some point, hopefully there'll be a production people can see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's around the corner.
It's around the corner. That's I can't wait. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about another aspect of what you do. You're an actor.
Yes.
You're a performer in where there is no music involved, unless it's a musical, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're preparing for a role, is there anything in particular you do, aside from obviously reading it? Do you prep in some way? Do you have a specific set of things that you do?
Well, sometimes I'll do a little bit of research just in the way of maybe that style, the director looking at their work, or the style that the movie or the play is going to be done in. Research anything that I need to in and around the play or the movie, whether the history that's going on in it, or things about the character that maybe are not similar to me. First I find those similarities, and then whatever's different, I try and find ways to bridge the gap.
And so so when you say find ways, can you give us an example of a gap you needed to bridge and how you got there? You were not like Maureen in Rent, or were you?
There were a lot of similarities.
So you felt that was a natural fit for you?
It was pretty natural fit.
Same with Wendla?
Yeah. I hone in on those similarities. That's the thing that I really work with the most. I don't know. Nothing's really coming to mind.
Nothing's jumping out as to what would be a gap that you would bridge. That means the roles that you've been fortunate enough to get just sort of fit for you.
Pretty much.
You didn't have to go way outside of your comfort zone in order to become something other than what you already sensed.
Yeah, it seems that way, huh? I kind of always stick to the personal thing. It kind of works out that way.
I would say there is a really strong theme in your career with that. And I got to tell you, I think that's very fortunate for you. I think there are a lot of people that are in search of things that aren't them. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, then they have to stretch very far to get there. And that takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that you haven't worked really hard, because you do. I'm saying it's a little bit easier for you because it has more a natural fit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that's what I just get drawn to. I have an interest. That's what I have an interest in doing.
Mm-hmm. So you've also worked with a number of directors over time. Mm-hmm. What is it that you like from a director? What is it you want?
I guess I would say a director that is intuitive and open and appreciative to all the talent in the room, that might not be rigid to their vision, just kind of like what we were talking about with collaboration. You might have an idea, but then if you're collaborating with somebody, their idea may be something that you might want to go with because maybe that's a way to go and you just didn't see it in the moment.
Of course.
That the same thing with a director, that they have their vision, but then they allow for really being in the moment in the rehearsals, because you never know what it's going to be like until you, even though you've seen the people and you've cast them, when they're in the room of what they're going to bring to the table, how everybody's being in the moment individually together, and what's going to happen.
So okay, so that I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I just kind of want to explore the personal for you for a moment. So you're performing, and a director is going to give you notes at some point, if not on a regular basis. Is there any one particular thing that let's go the opposite? Is there anything that directors have ever done around you, to you, with you, that you really don't like, that you wish they wouldn't do?
No, I think I've been lucky that way.
Have you worked with directors who have ever given you line readings throughout a performance?
I've had that a tiny bit. I have to say they're pretty good about it. They must have all had a little party and all talked about not doing that anymore. I honestly haven't come across anything in terms of. I come from the school of thought that, we're all there to serve the purpose for that greater vision, and the director really he's the leader of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be and sign on to a production, you have to trust the director to do that. So if he gives you a note or asks you to do something, and maybe it's not exactly how you see it, and there's times that we'll chat about it, or and I've been lucky enough that the directors will hear what I have to say, and will work with me on it. But most of the time, I've had good directors that if I've taken their notes, it takes the role to even a better place. So if you can't trust your director, I don't know if you should be doing the gig.
Well, that's a good question, but sometimes you may be deep. Well, maybe not for you. I mean, I've certainly heard lots of stories from actors over time where they get deep into something and they're committed and they're all the way in.
Yeah.
And then something happens to throw them for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you're kind of stuck in a contract.
And you're stuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're deep in it. Well, you can always quit, but that's not good for a reputation either.
Right.
You want to try and figure it out that's the ideal. It sounds to me like you've just had a blessed career in which things have been fairly natural for you.
I will tell you this, though. I think things have gone on around me that just because of my choices to focus on certain things, that I've allowed myself to, even if in the back of my mind I might know something's going on, I'm a little bit oblivious to it on purpose.
You put the blinders on?
Not to something that is wrong. I mean just pettiness, or where there can be some conflict or rubbing of personalities or jealousies or different things like that. Not blinders to something wrong going on. I've never been around that, because I would never put blinders on to something where you have to say, hey, this isn't right, because I'll be the first to say it. I mean just I
will tell you, you are absolutely an avoider of what I call tiny town politics.
Yes.
You do not play into tiny town politics at all.
That is true. That is true. I feel it's a waste of time. And I think if you just focus on the work and you focus on the good that is happening, there has to be something. I mean, if you can't trust your director midway through the production, then pay homage to the playwright, because he wrote this beautiful work that you decided to be in, and see it through to make it as great as it can be. And I think you can make lemonade out of lemons all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And that's what I focus on. So maybe when you ask me these questions, there may be a memory somewhere that if I really thought about it, I could find one. But they're really small in my mind, so I can't remember them right now.
Well, I think that's a great quality, But you do understand that lots of people have these kinds of experiences, and that they then are able to vocalize them. And part of what's going on here is if I can expose those, I think it helps people avoid them in the future.
It does, or helps people to, if they're in it, to do the best they can within it, because nothing is going to be smooth sailing. They're going to be challenges.
Have you ever worked on any production that was smooth sailing?
No,
it doesn't exist.
No,
If it does, there's probably actually something wrong.
It probably going to suck.
It's probably going to suck. Is right.
The reviews are going to be terrible.
Because in order to make art, I think it's kind of like making a pearl. It takes a grain of sand somewhere in that oyster. It's in an oyster. That it's that irritation of the sand that creates the stuff around it that makes the pearl. And so art, I think, frequently is about friction and conflict and so on. What do you do in your life and career? Because I know you've got a family and a son and so on. What do you do to stay on target and on deadline when you have a deadline? Do you have any particular tricks?
Use every moment possible. I mean, literally, like I'll have 10 minutes in between something, and I'll use it somehow. Ever since I had my son, I feel like I've had to create with ADD. Where you're writing a little bit, and all of a sudden, I wrote all this time whenever he was a baby, and he'd be napping, and I'm in the middle of this, like, wow, really inspired. I've got this great song, and then you hear the baby cry, and then you have to put it on hold. You're in this.
Are you good at being in the middle and putting it on hold and coming back?
I wasn't before he was born.
And it would just go away before.
Yeah, I would lose it. Now you have no choice but to make it work. There's moments where I'm in the middle of something, and I think I don't have the time. I don't have the time to make this as great as I want it to be. And all I just tell myself that just use what you have, and just trust that it's gonna be great. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fine. Just use the time that you have. Do the best that you can with what you have. That's all I can tell myself now. Because before I just had that luxury of I could spend hours and hours on something, and now it's maybe I just have 20 minutes. And you just.
Do you think, having spent so many years prior to your son's birth, being a writer who could do exactly what you wanted when you wanted to do it, that now that you have a compressed amount of time, that all of that experience has helped you to be able to compress it?
I think that's so true, Steve, and thank you for saying that, because I didn't even think of that. But that's probably exactly true, because I'm wondering where I'm able to do it.
You've taken all of your professional skills, and you were able to cut out a lot of the BS and just cut to the heart of things and then compress.
Yes.
And I think that happens with time, maturity, experience, and all those good things. So sometimes you can't do that when you're starting out.
No.
Because you don't know what it is that's supposed to work and doesn't work. And sometimes I think part of experience is learning what doesn't work so that you don't do it again. In other words, you know that these two chords together don't work, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to do those two chords. But sometimes it takes a while to get there. That's experience and wisdom.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you don't have the time to, what's that kind of, where you're just waiting, or what's the word, where you're just in it. You're in it, and you're wafting, and you're, am I saying the right words? In your stuff.
Think so.
Whenever you're going through stuff that you can't get past, you have a block or something.
You're just trying to just sort of marinate in whatever's there.
But sometimes whenever you're marinating, and if you're marinating too long, it starts to go in a bad direction. Then you're just like...
I know when I marinate too long, sometimes it starts to smell.
That's what I'm saying. Then you're just like floating in your own...
in your own marin. Marinade.
Yeah. And when you have too much time on your hands, you tend to do that more often.
I think...
Where when you don't have a lot of time, you're like, hey, I better be done marinating. I got to get this done,
It's time to get in some, get cooked.
Yes.
Because you've already marinated long enough. Yeah. That does happen. And sometimes you can, there's a weird thing that happens sometimes when you do marinate too long, the project doesn't work.
Totally.
It just doesn't work. Sometimes it is that fresh thing that happens, on that first pass that is the heart and soul of it. Then you have to work on it some, but there, that fresh pass is like gold.
Did you see that movie with Michael Douglas, Wonder Boy?
Oh, yes. Well, it takes place here in Pittsburgh.
Where he just like papers and papers and papers. He's just writing and writing and writing. I feel like when you have too much time in your hands, you can do that sometimes.
Then it all fritters away. He can't get anywhere, and then it fritters away into the water, right?
Yes.
And it's all gone, and he realizes it was all worthless.
Exactly.
Except the experience wasn't worthless, but actually doing it was not. It didn't have any value to him anymore.
Yes.
That's the problem with marinating too long.
Exactly.
Got it. How do you? Is there anything you do in your life to refresh the well?
Let me see. Live life. Because whenever I'm creating, I'm a hermit, where I say no to everything. I can't go to that, can't do that, because I'm trying to take every free moment possible to do the work. Well, whenever I'm done doing the work, I start living. I start going to see movies. I start going out. I start, participating in life more, and just taking in the world more.
And that allows the well to fill back up.
Yes, and relaxing. Where I'm not going to do anything.
Are you good at that?
No.
I'm not either.
No.
I'm absolutely the worst do-nothing person on the face of the planet.
But I will tell you this, once I get into the do-nothing mode, if I can just hang out there for a while, I start to get better at it. And then that's when the good stuff happens.
That's when the good stuff happens.
Yeah.
Because suddenly everything else that's stressing you out goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you allow your brain to cogitate on anything artistic, suddenly things come to you.
Yes.
Because I think what's happening is there's a lot of buzz going on in your
mm-hmm.
thinking process, and you're eliminating that buzz.
Yes. Ugh. Wow. I just want to go to the ocean right now.
Well, get thee to the ocean.
Yes.
So we have been talking, believe it or not, for 55 minutes.
You're kidding. Wow.
I'm not kidding you. And so we're coming toward the end of the show. And is there any particular story you might be able to relate to us that's either weird or quirky or funny or oddball from your history that would be kind of fun to hear?
Well, I guess I'll tell the story of how I met Jellybean, because that is a funny story. I was 2 months in at NYU. It was spring break. I didn't have any money to go anywhere, and then a friend told me, go see Jellybean because he's always looking for new talent. I found out where his office was, waited outside his office on this steel pipe coming up out of the ground for 3 days.
You waited for 3 straight days?
Well, I went home and slept.
So you knew he probably wasn't coming in at 3 a.m?
I was hoping not, yeah. But I would show up at 6 a.m. But by the second day, I went in, met the security guard, and told him what I was doing. I felt like I could trust him. And he said he usually comes in around 11, wears a black suit, white tennis shoes. So the third day, I'm sitting there, and I see this guy walk down the street, and he smiles at me, and I smile at him. And then I look down, I see the white tennis shoes, the black suit. I thought, oh, my, what if that's him? So I run into the building, and I yell, Jellybean. And it's echoing in this big marble lobby. All these music execs are in this
This is in
lobby.
New York.
In New York, on 57th Street and Broadway, Columbus Circle. And he stops, and I say, hi. I've been waiting for you for 3 days. My name's Carla Bianco. Can I have 10 minutes of your time? I just want to show you what I can do. And he's staring at me and staring at me. And I guess at the time, like the paparazzi was following him because there was rumor that he was getting back together with Madonna because they dated for 2 years. So finally, he gives me this hand gesture to come up with him to the elevator. So I do, and I sit down and play a song that I wrote. And he says, come to the Hit Factory later that day.
That's a recording studio.
Huge recording studio. I was like so excited. I went down. I called my friend from the subway. He saved the voicemail on his answering machine for like years. I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm so excited. So I show up at the Hit Factory later, and I just had this cassette tape of a drum beat and a bass line of this dance song that I wrote. I met this producer at some talent show. He gave me this cassette tape. So I go into the vocal booth, and that was my thing. These producers, they'd say, do you have a demo? Do you have a demo? Because that's a thing. You do these common things that everybody should have. Headshot, demo. I didn't want to do that. I said, nah, yeah, but I always wanted them to hear me sing live. So he's like, do you have a demo? I said, yep, actually, I have this cassette tape. He goes, he popped it in. So I went into the vocal booth right there in the moment and sang the song for him over top of the cassette tape, but live in the vocal booth in Hit Factory. Well, a week later, right before I left, I hand him off the demo. At the end of the meeting, a week later, he calls me into his office and offers me the production deal, management deal, publishing deal, and to put that song that I sang on his next record. That's how I broke into the music
Oh, my goodness.
business.
At what age?
This was 20.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. By the way, that happens every single day.
Well, I
never
thought,
happens. It
well,
never happens.
Well, what was crazy is when I showed up the first day, I thought there's going to be all these girls there, doing the same thing. I'm like, I get there and there's nobody there. I thought, where is everybody? Why isn't everybody waiting for this guy?
Because as you well know now, nobody does that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was like, oh, wow, I guess I'm the only one that had this idea.
So that's why he was open to going, you, come here.
Yeah.
It helped that you were a 20-year-old and female.
Does
I
help.
think if you'd been 65 years old and a man and a grizzled old guy,
Well, it
he
depends.
probably would not have summoned you to his office.
Right.
So I think that helped a great deal. And then obviously you came to his office with the goods. In other words, you didn't come up and play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. You actually gave him something that he went, holy mackerel, there's something here.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And that's a truly great story. Okay, and do you have a particular piece of advice or a tip that you can lend to our listeners for people who are just starting out in the business or trying to get better at what they're doing?
I would say if it's absolutely what you want to do, like you can't see yourself doing anything else, you just feel like such a strong desire for it, don't ever stop. Keep persevering through whatever it is that you're going through and have courage to follow your own unique path, because there's many ways that you can break in, and there's, you see the other artists doing their things that, oh, I want to do that too, but there's nobody like you, and you honestly have an opportunity to make your mark. There really is. I do believe in destiny. I think I'm a little bit like Forrest Gump, where there's like a destiny out there that's but you have to do the work to meet it, so it's both happening at the same time. I think everybody has that. So if you persevere and you really work hard to overcome and you make that happen, but follow that unique path that is yours, wow, you're going to be so amazingly surprised. It's going to be even better than you ever imagined. But you got to have courage and hang in there for the long haul.
I think you've said about 10 things in there that are
I
just
did,
fantastic.
man.
That's fantastic.
I feel passionate about that stuff. I tell you.
And you can hear it. You can hear your passion. And it's this is for anybody out there that's really struggling to make it. They've got to stick to it and stay on it, or
Yes.
it definitely goes away.
Yes. I remember when I was first starting out, it was a music manager that was managing me, and he said, you've got to give yourself 10 years. You might break in sooner, like a big break. You'll have little things along the way, but I mean, it's something significant. That it might happen sooner, it might happen a little later, but around 10 years, that's sort of a thing where you got to hang in there. And there is truth to that. I've heard so many stories. Yeah, see?
There's a lot of truth to it. Even people who hit it very early, as you hit it a good bit very early, it still took 10 years for you to mature into the artist that you've become.
Yes, and then have that other big break of landing Rent and doing Broadway. That was way further, 7 years in, but plugging away and
it's getting to know people, and it's understanding the business, and there's a whole lot of things that don't happen instantly. It takes time.
It does.
And if you can't hack that time, then you definitely will not last, because you'll go away somewhere else, and someone else will fill the spot that would have been yours. So I'm not saying don't ever give up. I'm saying, if you really want to do this, this is all you got to do.
Yeah, and the more that you hone into your heart, like your desire, why you started in the first place, you have to hone into it constantly, so that you can keep the drive going, because it does get hard.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
You're going to have ups and downs. It's not going to be a nice straight shot all the way. You're going to have moments that are very challenging.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, show business.
No, it's not. It's not.
It really isn't. Well, Carla, this has just been an absolute treat. I'm so glad that you came by today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Well, and Carla has been very gracious because we actually have a special treat on StoryBeat today. Carla is allowing us to conclude this StoryBeat episode with a song from her show, Kaleidoscope. This particular recording of Carla singing and playing was recorded live on April 5th, 2018 at the Pittsburgh CLO Cabaret. This is I Don't Want to Go Home.
I was Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I'd have a different point of view. I wouldn't be wishing for a way back. I'd be living a dream come true. Wouldn't be missing any elm. Wouldn't be hoping for it to end. And the witch can have my shoes, 'cause there'd be nothing for me to lose. I don't wanna go home. I'd rather be in a place that lets me be me, where I have my way. I don't want to go home to somewhere the sky is always gray. I'd rather be skipping down a yellow brick road, not knowing what I'll find next, not knowing where I'll go. I'd rather be living somewhere over the rainbow. I click my heels 2 times and say, I don't want to go home. I could find a spot in Munchkin Land, or maybe the wizard's got a spare bed. Maybe I can learn to fly the way the monkeys do, or take her place now the witch is dead. I've been living like a star with the sun and clouds not far, and I bet the yellow road goes further than I can ever know. I don't want to go home. I'd rather be in a place that lets me be me, where I have my way. I don't want to go home to somewhere the sky is always gray. I'd rather be skipping down a yellow brick road, not knowing what I'll find next, not knowing where I'll go. I'd rather be living somewhere over a rainbow. I click my heels 2 times and say, I don't want to go. I hear the green turns blue in May. Not gonna go. It's better for everyone this way. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home.
And so we've come to the end of today's StoryBeat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a comment on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great episodes to you. This podcast would not have been possible without the generous support of the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.